Well, welcome to Escape the Rat Race Radio today, Simon. How are you?
Oh, I'm fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm excellent, thanks. And where in the world are you today?
I am currently sat on Darling Bud's farm down in glorious Kent.
Wow. Well, I've heard about that before, but some of our listeners may not have. So I'll ask you to introduce yourself in a second, Simon. But we bumped into each other just before Christmas. You were on stage. You were speaking at an event where we had Lord Sugar. And I've seen you speak several times, actually. And it's always brilliant to hear your story. It's very inspiring. And for those listeners who haven't heard your story, I know that it's absolutely going to inspire them as well. So why don't you just let everyone know who Simon Coulson is and what your business is?
Okay, so the 1 minute version is I'm Simon Coulson. I used to have a corporate job, left that 13 years ago, set up a home-based internet business that did rather well, and then set up some other online businesses that did rather well too. And also then quite early on set up a training company called Internet Business School to teach other people how to do what I'd figured out how to do. That led me to become an international public speaker, speaking alongside the likes of, as you mentioned, Lord Sugar, but people like Richard Branson, President Clinton, Tony Robbins, Bob Proctor, Brian Tracy, all those kind of guys. So now I run 11 different companies, all internet-based in a whole range of different niches and areas. One of those is the training company, Internet Business School, which teaches other people how to do the same thing.
Yeah, and I know many people who've been on your training, Simon. Everyone always talks so highly of it, and you've got a wonderful team, I know, that support you with all of that now. So, Simon, was there a time, and I believe it's about 10 years, or going into the 11th year now, isn't it, of the Internet Business School, if I'm correct?
Yes, yeah, Internet Business School. I started a couple of years after I left the rat race. Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah.
So I was about to say, was there a time for yourself, Simon, when you would have said, yes, I'm in that rat race, and maybe not sure exactly where the next turn was going to be for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I left school at 18, went to work for BT for no other good reason than I didn't even know what the job was I was applying for, to be honest. I just sent off a CV to lots of big companies like BT and Prudential and Lloyd's looking for a job. When I was leaving school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. Ended up working for BT just because their job offer was the highest pay, starting pay as a school leaver. Worked in their customer services relation management department. And worked all through my 20s there, and actually 14 years I spent literally in that rat race, so commuting to London every day. It was a 2-hour journey just to get to work, involving an overground train and 2 tubes. So in fact, in the early days, it was the days before the slidey doors on the train. So literally, to save every last second on your journey, you'd be opening the slam doors and riding on the little runner plate, ready to jump off as it pulled into to Cannon Street or Charing Cross or whatever. And then it was the race to get down the escalators to the tube and get on the tube train. So it really was literally rat racing.
Mm. Yeah. And what was the actual defining moment for you, Simon, where you said enough is enough? Or was it a forced moment in terms of redundancy or something like that?
It was a couple of things, actually. I'd kind of got to my early 30s and thought, you know what, I really don't see myself doing this till I'm 65. I've been doing this for 14 years, really not enjoying it. And, I'm 30 now, 65. It's another 30 odd years of this. I'm not even a quarter of the way through, and I'm burnt out and had enough of it already. There was another incident where I actually collapsed at King's Cross tube station. So I was getting an escalator, and I just remember getting on the escalator at the bottom and then waking up on the floor at the bottom of the escalator, and I basically just blacked out and rolled backwards and landed in a heap at the bottom. And there were just loads of people, and it felt like hundreds, I don't know how many it was, but loads of people just stepping over me, just ignoring me. And then eventually one of them stopped and said, "Are you all right?" And I just remember going, "No." I didn't know what had happened, a heart attack or a stroke or what, I had no idea. So they got me an ambulance and they put heart monitors on me and everything, and they concluded that I hadn't had a heart attack or anything. They just said, "You've just fainted. You're just, probably fatigued, tired out, overdoing it. Go and see your GP tomorrow, get signed off for a week, just have a bit of R&R, and you'll probably be fine. But just, just slow down a bit. You're probably just trying to do too much." So that was made me really start thinking, but maybe I should be looking at something else. And originally I was just thinking, should I just find a local job that doesn't involve 4 hours travel a day? Because I thought, that's a big part of my day, is this, this hellish journey to work. And it's kind of 2 hours door to door if everything worked, but relying on 3 separate train lines. If one of those was down for the day, suddenly you've got even more drama. So it could be 2.5 or 3 hours just to get to work. So that got me thinking, and then I had this other thing going on, which was I played in a very average pub covers band, and we decided to change this band and become a Coldplay tribute band. And suddenly we started getting £2,000 a gig for this Coldplay tribute band, which between four of us meant £500 each. 2 gigs a week, £1,000 a week. That's actually more than BT were paying me. So suddenly there was this like alternative career path in front of me. And then the final thing that happened was BT announced a redundancy scheme. Said, we're looking for volunteers to go and we're prepared to pay you to leave. And I'm thinking, well, I was thinking of leaving anyway. You're now saying you'll give me a lump sum to go. How much? So I filled out the form online, and it was a bit under £20,000. So I've been there 14 years. It was relatively, it was still, because BT was quite a generous company in terms of redundancy. So it seemed like a reasonable chunk of change to go. And I just thought, you know what? I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. In fact, in my book, I talk about this, but literally on my last trip home from work, the last day of employment, I picked up a book called The Beer Mat Entrepreneur, just because I happened to see it in a book stand and just picked it up. And I literally didn't know what the hell I was going to do. I thought I'd better have a read of this, see if I can find a alternative plan. So, yeah, it was really those three things. It was the, collapsing in the escalator. It was having another career path opening up as a little sideline, and then the redundancy scheme being offered. And it's like, yeah, I think these stars are aligned and it's time to go.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've painted a picture there, which, a lot of people listening now will be probably stuck on that train and feeling in a similar way. And it's often, well, certainly in this day and age now, Simon, is an overwhelm of opportunities available. So it's not so much a lack of information, it's a lack of direction. So how did you then decide that the internet route was the right route for you? And what were the first steps that you took to educate yourself in that area?
Sure. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I literally remember buying like franchise magazines, looking at franchises. I looked at a dog walking franchise I seriously considered to spend my redundancy money on, and various other things. But one of the things I'd seen was an advert in a newspaper, which was for a seminar that basically the advert said something like, you can be rich, come and learn how to be a millionaire. And I was a bit cynical, but I thought, I'm going to go along and just see what this is all about. So went along to this seminar, and the guy became a millionaire from selling information products on CDs and DVDs, like training products that he was licensing from America, from other people that created the products. And I love the concept, because he was talking about these huge profit margins that were possible, where he was licensing a product for £5,000 or £10,000 as a license fee. But once he'd licensed it, he could sell a set of DVDs for £500. That only cost you £10 to duplicate. So I love the idea of the margins, but my challenge was I didn't really have the spare capital to put into buying a license for someone's products, but then also the marketing campaign, the direct mail or the newspaper ads he was running to sell them. So this was the time when the internet started to get quite popular, and I just thought maybe there's something I can do with the internet as my channel to market rather than newspaper ads and direct mail. And also the other challenge was licensing the products. I thought maybe I could create my own product. I had all the time in the world. I wasn't doing a day job anymore. So really, I just found my way in the dark. I'd never done this before, but I, taught myself how to make a simple web page. I created this first ebook, which was about buying investment property in Bulgaria. And just through trying stuff out, got this web page to come out on the first page of Google for when people were searching for phrases around Bulgaria property investment, and it started selling. And people often say to me now, what's it like making the first million? And actually, it was a much bigger wow making the first 20 quid, because it was the first sale that dropped in. I thought, there's someone that doesn't know me somewhere on this planet that's just sent me 20 quid. It's like, this is amazing. And once you've got the first one, you kind of know that this stuff works and you can make more. And all you've got to do is just get, more traffic and more products, and the amount of money you make is just going to go up.
Yeah. And over the last 10 years, you've now helped thousands and thousands of people to have those first 20 quids drop in themselves. And so for someone who is really kind of new to the internet world now, and they're looking at what's my first avenue to start getting a little bit of income, have things changed a lot? Obviously, there's been technological advancements, but in terms of just getting a proven concept and getting someone to just give you some money, Is that still, well, what are your tips, Simon, for someone who's getting started? Is there a particular route where you advise them to look at, or are there many, many different options available
Yeah,
now?
and it's funny because people say, "Oh, it was easy in your day. It wasn't as much competition." But I have to point out and say, "Well, when I started, it seems crazy, but Facebook didn't exist. Facebook actually started the year after I started. So, in the early days, the only option was Google. That was the main channel to market. But now we've got Facebook and Snapchat and Instagram and Pinterest and all these new things that come along the way. So actually, there's so many great channels to market now, which are free. You can reach 2 billion people for free on Facebook. It's like, I never had that advantage. So you could literally, some of the fastest ways to make a few quid and just get going is affiliate marketing's come of age as well. So just about every business on the planet now has some sort of affiliate scheme. So you could literally go to some affiliate site, find a product to promote, create a group or a page on Facebook around that niche, and just start adding value to people's lives, sharing content, and then intersperse that with the odd promotional link for something, and start making those first 20 quid, those first affiliate commissions. So I say to anyone thinking about it, just dip your toe in the water and start. The great thing is that it's not massively time consuming. So you could actually just start having a little bit of play with the internet, sign up for some affiliate programs, drive some traffic to some offers, start trying some things out and finding your little niche. But it's never been easier really. So the website technology's come on no ends. When I started, I had to learn a little bit about HTML, and header tags and stuff. It was actually a little bit of code that I was doing in the early days on the websites, but now you've got all these great website builders, you've got WordPress, you've got drag and drop WordPress themes. So the website building bits got infinitely easier. The number of traffic sources has grown hugely. Even things like payment process. When I started, I went to my bank and said, I want to sell stuff online. They just turned me down flat. Said, no, sorry, we don't accept new internet-based businesses. Just like now, you can go onto stripe.com and you can have a merchant account set up within the hour. So in many respects, it's got a lot easier. There's more competition, but the trick has always been to find those niches and find new emerging markets. And don't follow the crowd. Try and be the early adopter in the next thing that's going to be popular.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And in terms of the fundamentals of business, Simon, so people come and they say, well, I want to have an internet business, but do you agree that you need to understand the fundamentals of business, of customers, of who you're targeting, of the problems you're solving before you actually think, okay, then how do I translate that online?
Sure. Yeah. What we teach really is like a 4-step methodology to say, to qualify an idea. If you've got this idea, I want to sell whatever it might be. Firstly, you need to make sure the market's big enough. You need to make sure there's enough people that are looking for that particular kind of thing. Then you need to look at the competition and say, well, who's out there doing it already? And realistically, how are you going to differentiate from what is already there? What could you do about this thing and do it differently to the other guys? Then we look at the trends of this particular area. Like, what is the actual cycle doing in terms of, is this a growth area? Is it stagnating? Is it pretty flat? Or is it actually diminishing? And the fourth factor we look at is, what's the willingness of people to spend money in this particular area? So how likely are people in this particular niche to get their wallets out versus another niche? So when we do our training programs, we kind of do idea generation exercises, get people to come up with lots of different ideas of things they could get into based on their own experience, interests, hobbies, people that they know. And then we teach them how to qualify out those ideas with these kind of business fundamentals, that it's all about market size, market competition, market trends, etc. So that you're only backing the winning horses. You don't spend loads of time and effort and money developing an idea that actually no one wants to buy, or you're never going to be cheaper than the guys that are out there already, or you're never going to be able to differentiate in a positive way your product versus someone else's.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Simon, I'm really keen. You mentioned there about some of the greats that you've spoken on stage with, people like Tony Robbins, Bob Proctor. When you were starting out, you probably couldn't imagine that that was ever going to happen in your life. How much have you set goals for yourself in the past? And are you someone who creates a vision and really works hard to achieve that? And how did all of this kind of manifest itself in your life, do you think?
It's kind of really interesting because I call myself the accidental public speaker, in that I never had any incentive, never. It was never an objective to be a public speaker. It's completely by accident. I was actually running a a membership site called Business Opportunity Review, which was a review site of business schemes and franchises. And a seminar promoter asked me to promote his seminar, which was an entrepreneur seminar, and he thought my database would have a good fit with his list. So I promoted his seminar, and they just called me up afterwards and said, thanks for doing that. You know, is there anything I can do for you? And I said, well, yeah, I'm selling information products on growing bonsai trees and car mechanics and bricklaying, and not really, you know, it's not a big fit. Most of my business is actually selling info products. And he said, oh, how's it going? And I said, well, it's going pretty well. I've made about 3 million quid so far. And he said, wow, that's amazing. That's a home-based business you've made 3 million quid from. Do you want to come and speak at my next seminar? So it's only because he asked that question, and I actually thought, well, I guess so. I think people want to hear about this. So if he never asked me that question, I never would have been a public speaker. I had no desire to do it at all. And then I spoke at his seminar. I then spoke another one for the same guy. And then I bumped into the guy who was running the first ever seminar that I attended. And foolishly, he was actually attending a seminar in Atlanta. So I went up and kind of shook his hand and said, thanks for that stuff you taught me 3 years ago. You know, it was great. I've built a multi-million-pound business from it. And he said, oh, come and tell me more about it when we get back to the UK, because this was out in America. And I foolishly at that meeting said, I now speak at seminars. And he said, oh, I've got another seminar coming up. Do you want to speak at that one? And I was just thinking he'd get me to sort of pitch up for 5 minutes and be like a case study or something. I was also expecting it to be a similar size to the one I'd attended, which had about 70 people at. But it turns out this little speaking gig was to 3,500 people at Bournemouth Conference Centre. So it was a real baptism of fire, like going from just speaking, you know, and not being very accomplished or trained or anything, to little rooms of 30, 40 people to suddenly 3,500. But it went really well, was really well received. And then the phone started ringing from other seminar promoters saying, can you come and speak at my seminar? So literally within a year from there, I was speaking internationally. I got to speak in Dubai, I think was the first one that I did. And then the gigs just got bigger. You know, I got booked for companies like Success Resources that put Tony Robbins around the world and that kind of stuff. So I started getting booked for bigger and bigger events, and kind of reputation got around that actually this guy's a little bit different. He's not like your normal speakers that's all kind of rah and shouts and punch the air. He's a bit deadpan. He tells it like it is. He's just the average guy who used to work for the phone company. And that kind of difference seemed to appeal to people really, and seemed to resonate. So like I say, the accidental public speaker, and the gigs just got bigger. And just yesterday, I was doing like a 1,000-person event in London. You know, and I kind of look back and think, God, I used to hate standing up in front of 10 people at my BT team meeting. So like, you know, yesterday, not only did I speak, I actually did a song from the stage in front of the audience as well. And it's the surreal story behind that is we were just, me and Andy, the guys put the seminar on, we're just having a chat the night before. We had a curry. We said, yeah, we should do something different. Let's have a song. And we were pulling up karaoke tracks and auditioning karaoke tracks at midnight the night before, choosing what song we were going to actually do. So it's kind of crazy now that, you know, I was the sort of shrinking violet in corporate world, and now I speak to thousands and start singing songs to them. Kind of bonkers.
No, I love that. And that just goes to show the freedom that you have as an entrepreneur, doesn't it? How you can get into your flow and just enjoy what you're doing. And as long as you're giving value to people, then you can kind of make things up a little bit as you go along. So I think the purpose of me doing these interviews, Simon, is to have these real conversations with people, because so many of our listeners, they'll be stuck in that rut and feeling like it's really difficult to get out and off that kind of hamster wheel, but it's so worth it. And so I'd love for you to share a few words just to really help people, give them that little bit of a push. Those who know inside that they're not really meant to be sat behind a desk every day working for someone else, and they know there's something bigger and better within themselves. And you've helped so many people to make that transition from employee to entrepreneur. What are some of the traits that you see in people, Simon, who do successfully make that break?
Sure, I think self-discipline is a big one. I noticed quite early on that some of my most successful students were ex-military, and that meant they were used to just following instructions, doing what they're told, and that's continued. And when I got to speak alongside Tony Robbins, he said something, and finally the penny dropped for me, because I thought I've been running these courses, and literally I can have a course where someone will go on and become a millionaire within a year, and someone sat next to them might not have made any money a year later, but yeah, they were taught the same stuff. And often it wasn't the person who you'd think would be more predisposed to be successful. It wasn't the person who was more techie or knew more about the internet. It was a person that didn't know anything about the internet that made all the money. So Tony Robbins said success is 80% mindset and 20% mechanics. And I think this whole mindset thing is really key. It's kind of like your mental attitude. I think it's a Henry Ford quote that says, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And I think that kind of sums it up, really. So I think the belief in yourself, and I think when I left BT, people thought I was crazy to leave this secure job I had for 14 years. It would have been a job for life, was pension, was private healthcare. They're like, why are you walking away from this job? But I had this kind of inner self-belief that, you know what, this isn't what I'm happy doing. And I kind of know there's something better out there. And I don't know what the hell it is yet, but I'm gonna figure it out. I'm sure it'll come along. And I think my whole journey has not been planned out. I've kind of rolled with the punches, and I've gone with, stuff that I never thought I'd be doing. But I think if you've got that mindset that you can do anything, with this day and age, if I said to you, could you build a rocket ship and fly it to the moon? You know what? If you think you can, you could, because you could find everything you need to know about building a rocket ship and flying to the moon on the internet, right? You could find out what trajectory you'd need, how much fuel you'd need, how much it's got away. You could find the scientists that would build you the engine, whatever it is. So we can all do anything we want. There's nothing that any of us can't do. I had a guy come up to me years ago and said, "Oh, I've got this idea about running a lottery business." It's like, well, I've never run a lottery business. All I've done is made a couple of websites at this point. But I just Googled, how do you run a lottery? And found out how do you get a license from the Gambling Commission, and created a lottery business, sold it to Premiership football clubs, and then sold the business 18 months later to a big lottery operator. And I think it's that mindset I've got. It's like, I've never done it before, but I'll give it a go. Like when I bought the farm, it's a massive property development. I've never done property development. My first project is like £1 million property development, converting barns and outbuildings into holiday accommodation and a wedding venue. And it's like, people are like, crazy, we've never done it before. Why don't you do like a little house extension or a flat conversion first? Why are you launching in with building 4 new houses concurrently on a listed building with all the complications? It's like, well, I don't know. I'll give it a go, and then I'll learn how to do it. So we've got a really good slide actually we use on the course, which is like somebody in a bubble. And I often think that you're in a bubble, it's your comfort zone, and often people aren't prepared to jump out of that bubble and take any risks and do anything because it's comfortable. It's like, it's easy. There's a paycheck every month, but all the stuff that you want is outside of that comfort zone. So the only way you're going to get out of that comfort zone is actually just to break out, take that leap of faith, and have confidence in yourself that you'll make something happen. And sure enough, it does. Loads of the things that have happened to me are only because I just took that leap of faith. Another example is I just opened a self-storage centre. I've never done that before in my life. I know nothing about that industry, but because I thought, well, it can't be that hard, I just did it. So I think it's a lot about mindset. And I think about just taking that leap of faith. Think about that quote, what do you think you can or you can't? You're right. And just be prepared to make that jump. And I guess, when I made that jump, I had that little buffer. I had that little bit of redundancy money, which, was not even half a year's salary, but it was enough to tide me over for a few months. So, I'd never be sort of crazy and say, oh yeah, just walk out of your job tomorrow and live off your credit card. But I think in this day and age, you can actually afford to start educating yourself and start doing some stuff in your spare time. And you can kind of prove the concept to yourself. Anyone listening to this could set up a little business in their spare time, start generating some extra money. And that would give them the confidence that actually, yeah, this does work. Yes, it could scale up. And if I was to spend all my time doing this, I could genuinely make a living from doing this.
Yeah, and I believe it is just taking that first step that's sometimes the most scary for people, isn't it? But that comes to having good people around you, having good mentors, support groups. And it's so easy now to find those. And it makes such a difference because sometimes when we're sat at work, the people in the office are not quite on that same mindset. They probably haven't heard of books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Think and Grow Rich. And even our families sometimes who just want to protect us are trying to hold us back from investing in programs and courses because they don't fully understand it. And for a lot of people, that can put them off, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's a good point you make about the whole friends and family and stuff, because I've, had a lot of people around me like, what the hell are you doing? And the funniest example of all is, the farm that I've got now. When I bought it, I sent my mum the details. She's like, oh, it's a lot of work. Have you seen that film, The Money Pit? You know, she was like, what are you doing? This is the most crazy decision in your life. But now she's really proud, and she's got the mug and the picture on it. Oh, it's my boy's place. This is, look at this, look at what he's done. You know, it's funny how you can change. But in fairness to her, it's like, well, actually in their day and age, it was a riskier time to live. And they were brought up with being very risk averse. You know, no one took a risk of starting a business, because to do that, you'd need capital. And you might be literally betting everything you've got, and you might be borrowing money from family. In the old days, you might have had to borrow money from family to start a business. If it didn't work, you'd fall out with the entire family and kind of, you know, ruin your family relationship for your life. So much bigger stakes in those days. But now, of course, it's like, well, you could crowdfund a business idea and get complete strangers to invest in you. You'd have to go cap in hand to your nearest and dearest. So there's so many ways the world has changed. And I think, like you said, they're just trying to protect us. They're trying to offer advice. And I'm very much for, I'll listen to the advice of anyone, but what I always think about is, how qualified is this person to give me this advice? Because, you know, if you're thinking of starting a business and the bloke down the pub says, oh no, all those online things, it's all a scam, isn't it? And he's a road sweeper, he's never run a business, he's not really qualified to tell you that, because he doesn't know. But if it's someone that's bought into something like a franchise maybe, and they lost all their money, well, listen to their advice and see what you can learn from that. So, you know, take advice from people, but have your own mind as well. And what you probably find is that your circle of friends might change over time. Yeah, because they say that your network is your net worth. And if you just, what I find is, if you surround yourself with more positive people, then not only do they kind of support your decisions, but also that grows you as well, because you get the benefit of their ideas and their expertise as well. And actually that encourages you to keep growing. You don't kind of sit on your laurels, but you're always being stretched, because actually you've got this kind of peer group that's achieving great things as well. So you kind of naturally want to keep on achieving. So yeah, listen to people, but don't think of it as a ball and chain. I actually make a joke of this on the course, and I talk about this very subject, and say, you know, if you're with a partner and it's your partner, because quite often it's a husband or wife, you know, that's holding you back, I kind of flippantly say, get yourself a new one, you know, move on. It's if that's the person that's holding you back, do you want to be held back for the rest of your life, or do you really want to do this? And if that's what's going on, get yourself a new partner. So it's kind of a little bit tongue in cheek, but
yeah. Well, very much feel the fear and do it anyway, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And a real funny story about that is, when I went to Necker Island, they did a little boat trip out snorkeling, and you know, I'd never done it before, but I'm like, yeah, it's actually not snorkeling, it's like diving sort of thing. Anyway, so I think what I thought I heard was snorkeling. I was just thinking, you know, like, you know, Brighton Beach with a little snorkel, you just paddle out, you know, put your head under. And I was thinking something like that. It's just like, yeah, I'll do it anyway. It's like, I've never done any sort of anything like that in my life. I'm not even a very good swimmer. And I remember we sort of parked the boat, and I was thinking we'd sort of be going off a beach, but no, we just parked the boat like in really deep water, like, you know, 100-foot deep water or something ridiculous. Everybody just starts putting flippers on and jumping off the boat. So I put the flippers on and jumped off the boat, and then realised that actually I'm probably drowning right now. And I'm way out of my depth. You know, I can swim a little bit, but I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And actually, they had to throw me in a life vest and save me. So, yeah, a good example of fear the fear and do it anyway. And I'll certainly learn about that from doing it.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So, Simon, fast forward the next 10 years. You are obviously the head of the Internet Business School, finger on the pulse in this digital world. What's really exciting you, and some of the new things coming in now, which you see as big opportunities?
Well, I think we've seen, a big sea change in my lifetime online has been probably the migration away from email. I think now we all get so many emails that we don't want anymore. So people have stopped signing up to join email lists because they can't cope with the number of emails they've got. So I think people are migrating to other channels. So right now people are starting to use things like Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp as their primary message communications. We've got things like the GDPR rules just coming in, the general data protection regs that are changing the permissions that you need to communicate with people. So the whole way in which you communicate with people is kind of changing. Facebook absolutely, I think, is a key. A lot of my businesses are starting to get probably the biggest proportion, the single biggest traffic source now is Facebook. But I think the same will happen. I was kind of prophesized that actually over the next decade, probably Facebook will be so flooded with commercial stuff, we will all switch off from using Facebook Messenger, and maybe we'll move to WhatsApp next, or maybe something that's not even invented yet. So I think one of the key things is you've got to just keep up with the technology and just follow it and kind of see what's next and what's next and what's next, because no one really knows what's going to be the big player. When Google Plus came in, everybody thought, oh yeah, Google's going to give Facebook a run for their money, and they couldn't do it. Even someone as big and powerful as Google didn't have a hope of getting Facebook off their perch. But then, say, heaven forbid, Facebook got hacked by Russian programmers and all our data got out there in the world, suddenly I think everybody would just pile out of Facebook and they'd look for something else. So we don't really know exactly what it is. So I think all you can do for the here and now is look at what's working now, and and keep up to date. So for example, a couple of weeks I'm off to something called the Traffic and Conversion Summit, which is the biggest conference in the internet marketing space. So I'll go there to learn, what's the new stuff that's on the horizon, what's around the corner, what have people been testing out and learning. So that'll be the new stuff that we'll start doing over here, because generally the US is about 6 months ahead of us in a lot of this stuff. So keep an eye on what's going on, but be prepared to change. I've seen people that just had one business model. Great example is when I started early on, there were people that had websites, there were content websites monetized with adverts with Google AdSense. And I know one guy that's making 300,000 a year just from people clicking on adverts on his websites, but that was his only business model. And as time went on, suddenly Google wasn't ranking those websites with ads on anymore. So his income dwindled from like 300 grand one year to 6 grand the next year, because he'd got all his eggs in one basket. He didn't keep an eye on what was happening and what was changing. So, out of business again within a year or two. So pay attention to what's going on, diversify, have different business models going on. So I've got affiliate marketing stuff going on. I've got loads of my own products. I've got diversification into bricks and mortar business like storage centers, but it's all led from customers finding us online. So they're internet-based businesses. There's no store that sells anything. It's all internet stuff. But so diversify so that you're not going to get caught out. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, in one strategy, one technology.
Yeah. The great marketer Jay Abraham talks about having multiple pillars for your business. And if you're thinking of a house standing on one pillar, it's a dangerous position to be. So as you rightly
Absolutely, yeah.
So Simon, anyone listening now, final words, they're really crammed up on that underground like you were kind of 12 years ago perhaps, or stuck in a traffic jam and something's holding them back. Perhaps it's fear, just to break free and actually really push themselves beyond that comfort zone. What are your final words of advice for them listening now?
Well, I think, what I tried to do with the book that I did was really aimed at those people, because one of the books that I read early on was 4 Hour Work Week, which I'm sure you know. So, it's like one thing to hear someone say, oh yeah, you can make money doing this. But for me as a bit of a cynic, when I was starting out, I always wanted to see the evidence of, show me exactly how, so you can check it out. Because I think if you're a logical thinker like I am, if you can show someone sort of overwhelming proof that something is as they're saying, you kind of get it, and then you believe it, and you'll be more prepared to take that leap of faith. So for me, doing the book, kind of documenting what I'd done, but also putting a case study in every chapter of people that I'd shown with their website addresses, that kind of has shown loads of people, this is how you can do it. These are real people. I can click on this website, I can look at it, I can understand what this person did and what this person did and what this person did. And actually, I could do that too. So I think, start immersing yourself, maybe go along to seminars, maybe read books like that, and start, convincing yourself that it is possible, and seeing different ways that different people are using to make money. Because you'll convince yourself. That's kind of what I did. I convinced myself that this guy was really making money from these information products, so I could do it myself, and I did. And then let people I've taught have seen what I was doing and done their own thing, and sure enough they found, yes, it works as well. So I think just start reading books is great for me. I've read loads and loads of books. Even when I was working, I used to read, my favorite kind of books were the biographies of people like Richard Branson or Thea Perfiz or Duncan Bannatyne or whatever. So I read loads of like bio books from successful people, and you won't realize it, but what you're actually doing just by osmosis really is you're picking up some of their traits. There was a quote, I think it was in Theo's book, or something I read about him, and someone put a question to him, and they said, yeah, in your book you talk about like working all through the night to on this particular deal or whatever, but if you're a successful entrepreneur, why do you have to like work 24 hours in a shift? That's like ridiculous, and he just said, that's why I'm a successful entrepreneur. Just like a little nugget takeaway like that. You might not realize it, but when you read it, that goes into your subconscious. And now you're realizing that if you want to be successful, you've got to put in that extra mile. And if you read those books of those successful people, you'll start to understand some of those traits, and you'll start to see what do they do differently to the average guy, and how do they think. And it'll all be sinking in. You won't realize it because it's your subconscious brain that's taking all this in. But I think that's part of the secret of my success, is actually reading all those biogs. I kind of sucked in lots of little nuggets from lots of successful people, and they got ingrained in my personality, so that I took all that on board when I started in business myself.
Yeah, great words. And we obviously have the advantage of podcasts as well now, so there's no excuse for not absorbing that great information that's out there. Yeah. Simon, you've been an absolutely brilliant guest today on Escape the Rat Race Radio. I've learned very much from you, and I'm sure our listeners have as well. And if they want to connect with you, come and find out more, where are the best places online for them to do that?
Sure. So a couple of places. The Internet Business School's website is just internetbusinessschool.com. And if you want to get a free copy of my book, you can go to interpreneur.com. So it's like internet mixed with entrepreneur. So interpreneur.com. And you can get a copy of my book and read more about how I did it, and also get lots of case studies of people that have done it too.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Simon. I look forward to seeing you on stage somewhere in London again very soon, and wish you all the best for the year ahead.
Great. Thanks a lot. Cheers. Catch you soon. Bye-bye.